And thank you. We're good. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let me introduce Megan. I met Megan just by mistake, actually. And what's so funny, Megan, I didn't tell you this was I have your cards here that I use, and I was using them for another project. And I was like, wait, this says Torrance Learning on it. These are Megan's cards. I must have picked them up at a L&D show, like at a bookstore, because I'm always buying things. And I had used them all this time and never put the connection together. Megan and I were in a prep session for training way back in the spring. And I was like, wow, who is this woman? She's really got it going on. And so I instantly liked her and what she was saying and bringing to the table. So thrilled when she agreed to be on our platform here for GameaCon. So thank you so much, Megan, for that. Let me tell you a little bit about Torrance Learning. Megan works with clients to design and deliver custom online, live, and blended learning solutions that meet specific needs quickly and cost effectively. They focus on helping employees to learn the important things they need to know through meaningful learning experiences that build on current knowledge and directly impact performance. Yes, that's exactly what we need. So Megan's bringing her background, her skills, her expertise, her knowledge, and she's going to be working with us on MVP, the simplest thing that could possibly work. So take it away, Megan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Monica, and thank you for picking up the ideas deck. So that actually was a very fun deck. If you haven't seen it, let me know. It's and we don't sell it online. We usually sell it through bookstores, but it is a card deck of instructional design ideas. So sometimes you just get stumped about what to do, and this was a bunch of ideas that was pulled together from research, from experienced instructional designers, from some learners, which was really powerful. Talk about play testing. We were laying out these cards. I wish I had a deck handy to reach and grab. Maybe after a break, I will bring them out. But we had them laid around and we started playing with them. And somebody walked in the room who would at some point in her future be someone who would use these. And she said, well, wait a minute, I've got like 6 or 7 that I would add to this. I'm like, bring it. So that was super cool. So the power of playtesting. And at that point, the cards were just printed out on either, right? We took a slide deck and printed them all out, or we're using index cards to lay some new ones out. So super, super cool. Oh, hi, Tyler. Nice to see you. So let's talk. Yes, I've got my friendship bracelet on. I am good to go. Thank you for noticing, Robin. We're going to have some fun, and we're going to make some truly ugly babies. I hope you have your markers. Shout out to my buddy, Carla Torgerson, who got me this mug after having stolen the XAPI gnome, for those of you who know the gnome. I hope you've got your markers. I hope you've got your scissors, some paper, some scribble scratch pad. Honestly, I can't make a PowerPoint slide without pulling out my pen stylus and scribbling around or getting up to my whiteboard. It's exactly what we're doing today. Exactly what we're doing today. But in the interest of no lecture, we're going to crowdsource a lot of the insights for today. So this one's going to run a little bit different than some of your other sessions. And I promise you will have table time in a little bit to work on your prototypes. In fact, a good hunk of table time to work on your lo-fi prototypes. So let me, as I'm switching to now what is I believe the 4th platform of my day, right? So let's take a look at the simplest thing that could possibly work. So I'm thinking a small, lightweight tent, or actually when I was a kid, we used to take my dad's old army ponchos and a piece of clothesline, string them between two trees, and you know what? It worked as a just fine tent. So this is drawn from my book. Where's my book? My book, Agile for Instructional Designers, and my workshop, Agile Project Management for Instructional Design, which I do at conferences, also do public sessions. We've got one scheduled for later this month and one scheduled for January. And I also do private workshops with your team intact. And when I say instructional design, this works for game designers, this works for like your regular instructional design day job. Whether you're working in an instructor-led, a virtual instructor-led, or e-learning, or even a micro-learning or video learning capacity. So all of that works together. Yesterday, I sat in on the really fantastic session about personas and really fantastic insights and questions, right? And so I consider the quality of the questions that get asked as an indication of whether people are picking it up or putting it right or not. And so the quality of the questions that got asked yesterday was top notch. There's a copy of my book. If that's something people want to explore more deeply, I'm happy to explore any of these, right? So some of you know me from my XAPI side. Some of you know me from our curriculum that we've developed, Cultivating Racial Equity in the Workplace, and L&D's role in cultivating racial equity in the workplace. I'm also a facilitator in communication skills, team psychology, and women's executive leadership at eCornell. That's kind of my hobby on the side, because if running a company and doing all these very disparate things wasn't enough, I needed a little bit of, something to keep myself busy in the evenings. So let's talk about what we're up to today. So we're going to spend 20 to 30 minutes collaboratively back and forth on kind of a lay of the land. Like, what do we mean by prototyping? We're going to crowdsource some of that information. We're going to spend the middle 40 minutes planning, making a strategic plan for iterative development, of which what you're about to do is build in that building your prototype session, right? And we'll make a strategic plan for how you're going to do it, though, right? So it's not just building something fast and cheap, right? But it's part of a larger evaluation plan. And then what I would like to do is crowdsource and see what you've built and share with each other what you've built. And I know there are a few of you who are sitting there thinking, my gosh, there is no way on this planet I am going to share my prototype in this forum. I totally get you, because you know what? I'm actually an introvert at heart, and I would want to spend a little bit more time with it before doing it. And then I know there are some of you who are like, this is my moment to shine. And I am calling on you. This is your moment to shine, because what you're going to do is you'll be showing something that's been made with markers and scissors or scribbles, or maybe you'll be taking a photograph of the whiteboard that you have, right? And you're going to show that, and you're going to help us show everybody else that a fast, lo-fi prototype is something that they don't have to be scared about. So I want to make this a safe space for everyone. And please don't feel pressure to share, because honestly, there's such a big and passionate group here. We're not going to have time anyways to see everybody's, but this is that opportunity. So if you think that's you, or as we get going, you think that's you, talk to your camp counselor. Camp counselors will be basically sourcing the people who are ready to demo, and we'll do that at the end here today. So why do we do this, right? We do this because the way in which we've been taught to do instructional design for the last half decade or so, okay, doesn't support change, doesn't support communication, doesn't support us supporting the business. What it does is it puts up barriers. And it assumes, now it was designed, it's not an all bad thing, it was designed with the thought that I would do a lot of thinking up front in this analysis and design phase, right? So that I wouldn't have so much change during develop and implement. And yeah. Evaluate here is enlarged to show detail. because we never get a chance to evaluate as much as we would like to. The trouble is that things change all of the time, and a model like this sets us up to feel like any change to the original analysis or design is actually an imposition to us getting our work done. And the whole point of testing, right, building a prototype, is that you evaluate it, in order to further inform your analysis and design before you implement it. And so this is drawn out of order. So I like to think of this way, right? A project is going to start with some analysis, design, and development, and very quickly, like, oh, I don't know, in about 10 minutes, right, start thinking about an implementation and an evaluation. And here what we're doing is, this is your first prototype, and then your next prototype and your next prototype, right? And the thinking is that you are getting this out to real learners, ideally learners who look very much like your primary persona that you designed yesterday after lunch with Jonathan, okay? Because they'll be the best testers, right? Not your subject matter experts and your stakeholders. You need them. They help you, but they're never going to use this game to learn what they need to learn to do on the job, right? And so we're going to use that to gather more input to do more design and development. This is why we do this. And we're just going to keep iterating, right, until we run out of time or budget or things worth improving before we need to release. Because every single day, you're going to learn something new about the project you're working on, and testing is how you make this intentional. So here's what we're going to do, right? I'm going to find my windows here. Right? Here's what we're going to do. We are going to go out to Miro, and I've lost my window. Hold on, everybody. It's there somewhere, right? Counselors, those of you who've been sharing the links, go ahead and share with everybody, right? That's where, there we go, I found us, right? So what we're gonna go out is, I'd like you to go out to the first section on this Miro board, and we're gonna talk about getting our terminology right enough. Doesn't have to be perfect, right enough. Okay. Thanks, Jonathan, for the link. So go ahead, make a sticky board, and jot down your definitions for each of these 4 things. I'll share, so those of you who are not doing the Miro board, you can go out and see the action. So we're defining MVP, prototype, iteration, and sprint. Everybody's jumping in on prototype. Don't forget some of these other spaces, everybody. We are still in item 1, which is getting our terminology right enough. I love this. This is watching like a hive of bees, like scurrying around and doing their thing. Although I'm going to turn off the hive view. Okay, we've got some stuff going on, right? I see prototype is an early design for testing and iteration. A sprint, which is a time period in which we work, is where we make a change and we try it out. And what goal is to fail fast often. Prototype could be a beta test. I actually like to think of a prototype much earlier than my beta test. Minimum viable product meets learner needs with minimum design and development work. You got it. Minimal functions to pilot with users. Absolutely. Minimum viable product, the minimum solution needed without extra features or benefits, like a skateboard if I needed to go from point A to point B instead of a car. Exactly, right? Or the car I have now instead of the Lamborghini I would like to have. Prototype, a sketch, an outline, thoughts in action. Right? Sprint. Yep. I'm going to pull your sprint comment. Sprint, which is an organized time defined for getting a specific amount of work done. I'm going to move that down into the sprint conversation. You got it. During sprints, we set interim goals. Sometimes a sprint feels like a rush deadline. Yep. Iterations then are stages of testing with incremental improvements. Right? You have one working example, then a next, it's a version, a working version. Okay, great stuff, everybody. Great stuff. Keep working here if you want, but I'm going to switch back over to my deck, right? And what I want to do is talk about next why we would do this, right? So as you can see, our prototypes and our iterations and our MVPs and our sprints are all related concepts. And for today, parsing them out academically is not as valuable as understanding the concept we're doing here is defining something that we can build very quickly, very inexpensively, get in front of somebody to test it in a short period of time before we get too far along with the build. Right? Our goal being that we want to make our small mistakes fast. So they're not expensive, they're not time consuming, and they don't create a lot of drama. Right? If you have read Michael Allen's Leaving Addie for Sam, which I strongly recommend you do, it's one of the seminal works in our industry. It is all about iterative development. And look right here, we have that magic word, prototype. Okay? Early on. Okay? Another way to think about this, right, is this way. And I love this. It's marvelously ugly and rough, and yet it absolutely conveys what it is that we're doing. We're going to do a little bit of analysis, a little bit of design, a little bit of coding, building, making, whatever. We're going to test it. And if we are done, we stop. Otherwise, we fix and then do the next round, right? So it looks like this. And our MVP, the minimum viable product, is the simplest thing that could possibly work. So there's lots of ways you can do something simple. And I see a few of you are going ahead to our second activity. Look at you being smart and fast. So what I'd like you to do, and I'm going to pull everybody who's on the board to me, right? What I'd like you to do is think about the ways in which you can build a prototype. There's some great examples here. Post-its, crayons, PowerPoint, Adobe Xd, right? Whatever. Jot them down and then sort them on the board based on how high fidelity or low fidelity they are, right? Think of fidelity as the closeness to which you get to the actual thing, right? The closest you get to the actual thing. Okay, we've got some stuff, right? Paper clips, tape, string, Post-it notes, crayons, whiteboards, Word documents. Oh, you know what? We prototyped a Visio diagrams. You got it. We prototyped software, right? A performance support tool for a piece of software in Google Forms. It cost us next to nothing. And you know what? When we did that, the client looked at that and said, well, okay, so the first thing they said was, man, that is ugly, right? And clunky and not what we want you to build, right? When you do this, these prototypes take a lot of communication, right? Your sponsor may be a little bit worried at just how ugly these things are, right? Oh yeah, yep, create it and rise. But the other thing, once we got past the, yep, this is ugly, and no, we're not building your software for you in Google Forms, right? What we got to next was, yeah, you know what? Now that we look at it laid out this way, it should be completely reorganized. Our thinking has really changed. And instead of 8 buckets, we have 4, and they're in a different order. Well, gosh golly, it's a whole lot easier to change that. Bubblegum and straws, love you, right? To change that when it's a Google form or Post-its on a wall, right? Pen and paper. I've done it, seen it done literally in paper in manila folders that are cut out to be the shape of the screen that you are using in the moment. And literally as you were pushing your button, right? Where would you go to do this next thing, right? You are literally, it feels ridiculous at the time, you are literally pushing your finger on a rectangle that's drawn in pencil that says next. Okay? And then a person goes and brings you a new piece of paper and slides it in your manila folder. Right? But these are fantastic ways to find out that what you've built works or doesn't work. Absolutely, right? So you have comps, right? And so love this, right? We have a great look here at things that are cheap and things that are expensive. Play-Doh. Oh my gosh, I love it. Yes, Rise actually makes for a really, or really just even Google sites, right? You can make some, I made a prototype website myself, made it myself. I don't know where any of the colons or brackets go on things, but I can do that. I have made die, right? Game dice by taping over like little pieces of paper. Do they roll nice? Do they feel nice? No, but it's cheap. This is great. Yep. I'll tell you a great story about Adobe Xd. We were building software for, so we built this e-learning course, and the client said, we love this, right? But what we want is we want it to be on mobile. We're like, okay, well, yeah, we can do that. We had a bunch of the users, not the requesters. The requesters said, we like the e-learning course, they want it on mobile. So we happen to have an opportunity to get all of the actual users or their representatives flown into Southern California for a particular meeting. We said, great, we will show up at that meeting and we will bring it on mobile. And it was a population that used older smartphones, right? Older, cheaper smartphones. And so we brought we just basically combed our entire team's old smartphones, loaded them up, cleared off the SIM cards, loaded them up with Adobe Xd models, passed them all out. We passed all these old crappy phones out to everybody. And the first thing somebody said was, right, it's a fully clickable. If you haven't used Adobe Xd, it's so awesome, right? Fully clickable, but it doesn't actually do anything, way of mocking up something that will be digital. And they said, oh yeah, this isn't what we asked for. They didn't want the e-learning on mobile. They wanted just the dosing calculator on mobile, just the performance support. And as devastating as it was to have spent a lot of hours building a really nice Adobe Xd prototype, okay, it was super awesome before we actually built the software to deliver what they wanted. Okay, we've got this concept down pat. So here's the thing, when you are iterating, I'm going to bring us all back. So if you're over on the mural board, switch back to the Gamicon screen, right? Why do we iterate? Why do we make prototypes, right? It's the same reason why when you're getting married and you're ordering a cake, when you're tasting cakes, they don't make you 4-foot long, multi-tiered chocolate fountain monstrosities. You bring you little cupcakes and you taste the cupcakes, right? It's these small scales that you catch your errors early. You always have something usable. If you have to set this aside and go do something else later on, you're just estimating one iteration at a time, one version at a time, right? And it feels good to make something that somebody else can test. You also can deliver early, right? So when you've got a stakeholder who wants to move fast, and you're like, wow, that's going to take me forever to build, you can move fast because they will probably be your prototype tester. They want it fast enough, they're willing to give you that feedback. And the point that you need to remember, the whole point of this is to find out what more work you need to do, what more design and development you need to do. So let's go over now to the third and final station on our group game board here. And of course, we've got people who are moving ahead of us, and they're right. But when you are choosing a prototyping medium, what would you keep in mind? Okay. What would you keep in mind that would help you pick from amongst all of the media that we and options that we just looked at on the third panel? Cost, you got it. Time, budget. Yeah, right. So if ADA considerations are really, really important in your project, and they are, right? They ought to be really important. Consider whether or not your prototyping approach also needs to be. Right? Best looking with the least learning curve. Interesting one. Now, I will say, right? I love that comment. I will say that sometimes, right? A lot of times, I have found value in something that intentionally looks, choosing my words carefully, like an ugly baby, maybe, right? I am intentionally choosing something that isn't fancy looking so that people feel much more comfortable giving me feedback. When it's super fancy, I get a lot of, oh, I trust you. I trust your creativity. Or, oh, you put a lot of time into this. So what I have doesn't make any sense, right? Or they feel like it's already baked. And so getting people to really understand that they're involved in the early phases, right? Client expectations and the sophistication of the client. Two stickies that really are very important, because you have an ongoing communication with your sponsors about this whole prototyping process, right? And some of them are going to be all for it, right? I've prototyped with a poster that describes the end result, right? Like a movie poster, right? A marketing poster. Like, what are you going to get out of this? And then we take it to learners and we say, which of these programs, and we do a bunch of different posters, which of these programs is the right fit for you? Which seems the most engaging, right? Super, super cool. All right, so you got it, right? Accessibility, our team's ability to use it, the project sponsor's expectations, the technology requirements, the ease of use, right? Your own comfort level, and time and cost. Really great work here, everyone, right? Good stuff. Continue adding to these boards. These will be up for a while. And consider coming back to these boards when you're done. I recommend go through and take screenshots. Save these in your notes and in your journal for this event, right? So let's start talking about how we do this. And actually, we're going to stop talking and you're going to start doing, right? So when we are building a prototype, right, we're going to decide what to test. We're going to build the lowest 5 feasible prototype that we possibly can. And we're going to make it testable, right? There's no point in having a prototype that you can't actually test. Those users you're going to gather in step 3 are going to look exactly or as close as you can to, what was her name? Pepsi Patty? I can't remember her name from yesterday, Jonathan. You have to remind me, right? But get users to play test who are very similar to your target persona. Run your test, gather data, but then before you run off on the data, step back and think about those insights before you take action, and then keep prototyping. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a tool that I've actually pulled, and we're going to go into your table groups in just a moment, right? Your campfire groups. And we're going to use a tool that I've actually pulled from my Llama workshop on planning to release in iterations. So this is a Word document that you have. You can get in your materials from my page. Your camp counselors have this document for you. It's in Word, so it's super easy to edit and add in stuff as you go in. You can put your project name in here, and then think about different ways in which you could iterate on your design, right? So first I'm going to make a scribbles and paper version, and then I'm going to make one that looks like PowerPoint, and then finally I'm actually going to build it in the tool I'm building it in. Great. That's iteration 1, iteration 2, iteration 3. Another approach to iteration, instead of by level of finish, right, could be audience group, right? I've got my close-in audience, I've got my second audience, and my third audience, right? So there's lots of different ways. What I'd like you to do is spend, camp counselors, I think we're going to spend about 10 minutes. You're not going to have time to finish this. Just thinking about a plan for iteration, knowing that this top left bucket, that's what we're building 10 minutes from now. That's what we're building 10 minutes from now. So everybody head on over. Debbie Diet Coke, thank you. So let's head into groups. We're going to use that Word document to plan for our prototypes and our future iterations, and then we'll come back here in 10 minutes.
All right.